Dear friends, I'm glad to see you all again on Feygin Live. It is Tuesday, 21st of June, 2 minutes past 10 Kiev time, day 118 with Olexiy Arestovych. Glad to see you, Olexiy. Likewise, glad to see you guys too. We have over 140,000 people watching us live. As always, I ask our viewers to share the links to this stream and your social media so more people can watch it. It is important as this war continues. There's nothing we can do but continue fighting and continue our streams. And subscribe to Feygin Live, Olexiy Arestovych. And if you are watching or listening to that in English, subscribe to the Privateer station. Click that bell button so you get notes of new releases. Alright, since yesterday we might have some news, and have the map ready, so please guide us through, Olexiy. Alright, we got some news. North of Kharkov region, there is the fighting between us and Russian troops there. Problem is that they're still reaching Kharkov with the artillery. 15 people dead, 16 wounded, and an 8-year-old girl is wounded, from what I hear. That's what we warned yesterday, remember? Tell me, do they intensify the shelling? Just over the city, or they're looking for depots, ammo, military targets? They're hitting the city and suburbs and everything without really targeting. They're just doing the terror of population. Same thing why they did that in Chernihiv, same thing that they did in Mariupol. Their goal is to pull our forces to the north and prevent us from advancing near Kherson and other directions. So yes, they always have a rational part of their action. That's understandable. And that is one of the scary, in parentheses, parts of that, or without parentheses, but there is a reason in every horrible action they take. And they are scaring population, they are terrorizing people in order for Ukraine withdrew its artillery from other locations and continue artillery duels up north. And this is that evil scheme that Putin's regime is using. So if now we hit some targets, let's say Crimea Bridge, I'm just saying hypothetically, so if we hit it, does it make it better or worse near Kharkov? Well, we have an example. We hit Snake Island yesterday. Well, we didn't hit it, exploded. And they are shelling Odessa, Nikolaev, a little bit in Chernihiv and other places. They're shelling us too. So one you cannot see that they need a reason to attack you. Not really. Yeah, they're not looking for reasons. They're looking to cause destruction, terror, and occupy the land. And they're terrorizing our population to make us react militarily to these atrocities. I suspect that this group in the south, near Belgorod, in the Kharkov general area, they can generally throw that group towards Kharkov. That definitely would withdraw more troops to this conflict. And they're also fighting the war of exhaustion, and they need Kharkov semi-surrounded, being hit constantly by the artillery, which we cannot move, cannot push away, so that civilians would be dying and suffering there every day, and that's one of their goals. Of course, that's the thing that they are trying to create. They want civilians to start screaming that you cannot do anything in Kiev, our power in Kiev is useless, they cannot fight Russians, And you think this is, yeah, this is their general blueprint. So you think that if you pull artillery from other places and put it near Kharkov, do you think it'll put an end to that? No, I actually think they'll be escalated further in this case. So we understand whom we're dealing with. Also, Izum, Slavianskaya direction, Bogorodichne, Barvinkovo, Liman, and Raigorodok. The fighting continues, but for the most part, it is tactical local skirmishes. And it appears they are relocating some of the troops from Izum area to Severodonetsk. They see Izum as lacking perspective for their military activities, and they're trying to emphasize their hit on Severodonetsk and maybe capture it. We have big issues to the south of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. They threw at least battalion tactical groups in that direction, but since both sides are very tired, even that is a serious weight on the system, and it worked. So they got Toshkovka and they're trying to advance to the north, trying to get to Novoalexandrovka, trying to get to the tactical encirclement Zolotoye and Gorskaya. Those two settlements to 5 o'clock on this map, that protrusion that we still occupy. And they also moved to Sirotina, right under or near Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. We also lost Metelkina to the south of Severodonetsk. And that's how they're doing, attempting to make several circles there. Since that was the location where they moved some of the troops, that's where they're having some tactical success right now. Near Nikolaevka, they got to the road, Bakhmut, Lysychansk, but they were forced out again. So they're still trying to get to the road. And they're still pushing to Klinovoye to try to break through the road and push us out to unprepared positions and create a tactical success for Russia and cause serious issues for Ukraine army. Some people, some analysts on our side, I heard saying that it's tactical operative success for Russia. I disagree with that. I think this is mostly tactical success, and I understand that some viewers may not understand it, but I think they need to study the terminology of military fighting. So they're having tactical success. Operative success would be to close the encirclement, put the lid on this kettle, but right now they don't have it. Tell me, so the border between operative and operative tactical is pretty thin. Is there a moment somewhere in that scenario where it might be easier to withdraw, pull your troops back from Severodonetsk and Lysychansk to not be surrounded by Russian troops? These decisions are made by military command. What if you would be doing that? What would you do? Personally, after achieving the goal of wearing out the enemy, I would move our troops to the new defense line, that I would prepare in advance, and I'd pull our troops back there and do the rotation, let the fighters rest and get the new troops in that place. As a military specialist, I'm against the open flanks. I'm against the open sides. It is all good when you have an overwhelming reserve power. That is good when you can show that you're weak, lure the enemy to attack these troops. That's what Germans like to do back in the Second World War on the same Izum area. They let Russians to attack and then hit them on the side, and 200,000 were gone. You can do that when you have a strong operative reserve. This doesn't quite look like us at the moment. But we have to understand that our command knows the full picture. Me personally, I definitely have more data than the usual layman, but command has definitely more data than I do. So I hope they do have an idea, an ideation to these actions. So let's hope they have enough data and reserves to complete their ideas and bring them to fruition. But Gorskaya and Zolotoye is a very problematic area right now. You can see that Russian command is learning. They stopped sending their tentacles, and they're creating smaller tactical kettles which they can actually close. And they realize localized tactical advantage, which is easier to do instead of a big front events. Let's go south. More artillery duels, not much, nothing on Zaporozhye yet. Although they did try to push us just recently, but yeah, they kind of stopped again. On Kherson area, our tactical actions are bringing more fruit. Now, it's not just the road, it's also Kiselevka village that we took. How far is Kiselevka from Kherson? Roughly about 15 kilometers, maybe a little less than that, but generally about 15. I've seen the video where somebody is viewing Russian block posts in binocular. Yep, but I once again have to reiterate that this is war, and distance itself does not mean much. What is important is presence of troops and resources on the direction. And Russian army was a good proof to that near Izum, that 5 miles can be a long way to walk. So that's the situation we have right now. I wouldn't say critical, I would say complex, complicated situation there. Regarding possible artillery and missile hits, I think we should mention for our viewers that Kharkiv is a battlefront city. It is a frontline city, and it likely will stay that for a while. 15 civilians dead over the last 24 hours in Kharkiv and region. For those citizens who are not ready to live in the frontline city, especially it's related to little kids and elderly, they need to be protected. So that's what I think. Second thing, for Kievans, once again, please do not disregard sirens. Till 26th, roughly, do not neglect air raid sirens. Do you think this can be retaliation for Black Sea activity, those gas rigs? Yes, they still want to revenge for what they've lost in the Black Sea. And one hothead in Russian Duma did spill beans saying that they will do that, so I'd be very careful. So do you think they will hit us like this? Is there a way for you to strike back at them? Well, we do have resources to make it really painful for them as well, but I cannot announce them. So can you elaborate on that? Well, I would say that if they want to raise the stakes, we're ready to raise them as well. All right. It's kind of useless to tell them not to do that, not to shoot cities. As they spelled in the words, not later than 26th of February, so yep. Alright, your favorite topic. Transfer of arms to Ukraine. Today, Business Insider that Slovakia is ready to transfer 12 jet fighters MiG-29 to Ukraine, which will be a serious help, but only after Poland and Czech would agree to defend their airspace. And before that, they said to give us a battalion of T-72, but now Germany are ready to give only 15 to Slovakia in exchange for their tanks. And Slovakia is setting these terms for the airplanes as well, because the delivery of US jet fighters for Slovakia is being delayed. Minister of Defense Reznikov said that German howitzers Panzer 2000 arrived to Ukraine. Have they really arrived? Minister of Defense said that they did. Oh, we believe him, but are they already on the front, or... Mark, no, they just arrived to Ukraine. I don't know, maybe you rode one and not telling us where it is. See, the thing is, if I did ride it, I would never disclose where it is anyway. You know when I'll be able to tell you a lot of inside stories? When the war will be over, when I won't be bound by the oath to not spill details. I'll have about a month worth of insider data for you. Some of that is pretty amazing. Attorney General of the United States arrived to Ukraine, met with Irina Venediktova, and I'm quoting him that United States are sending a signal. There is nowhere to hide. We and our partners will use different means to make sure that people responsible for these atrocities will be punished for it. His visit was not officially announced until the arrival, as it often happens with the high-level functionaries. He arrived, he did a few meetings and left. The main question was international prosecution of war criminals. And, you know, besides all the punishment, expropriation of property is also a good way to punish some of them. Yes. Okay, Guardian stated today that 190,000 of children were deported from Ukraine to Russia. How many of them by force without their agreement? Unknown, but at least they're talking about tens of thousands who had no voice in that deportation. And some of them traveled with parents, but many of them traveled without. Putin also adopted a special law to make it easier to adopt these kids. In special camps, they're being taught Russian language. And that story led to Britain implementing special targeted sanctions for the barbarianism towards children, including the death of hundreds of them during the operation. Canada also adopted a law allowing to confiscate Russian assets, and they said that's a good law because that allows them to transfer that money to help Ukraine. Ukraine is also in the news today by words of our Minister of Justice, who said we have 51 camps for prisoners of war from Russia, and we try to provide them with useful activity. There is even one camp where they do woodwork and learn how to do that. Speaking of Lithuania escalated the situation in response to Russian statements. So they blocked vehicles delivery to Kaliningrad. Before that, they blocked the transit by railroad. Now they're blocking also the transit by road. Russia keeps screaming. And Turks also said today that the negotiations about grain might happen next week. We treat that with a proper piety and a little bit, if we're talking about myself, with irony. I'm usually happily ironic in these cases. All right, we'll talk about that a little later. We're about 20 minutes live. We have over 160,000 people watching us. Well, damn it, I'm making a lot of interesting statements here, and I'm not seeing a usual terrific growth of viewers. Well, and although Olexiy is just one of our interviewees on this channel, we do support him, we do like him, so we're not allowing our viewers to trash him in any way. Please come join, it's a good company here. Um, as we can see, there are several reactions that may be of interest in the world. First of it is about that platform, those platforms hit in the ocean. The other side said that some personnel died. We spoke about military personnel. They said there was also civilian, and they're trying to exploit that subject to compensate for their shelling of Donetsk and other cities. It's war. To express sentiments for these actions is difficult. Both sides are shooting at each other. Do you think there's any provocation in regarding to the shelling of different areas, like Donetsk? Okay, so let's put it this way: Ukrainian army hits only ammo depots and congregation of military targets, including the east, including DNR and LNR, but we're never hitting deliberately on the civilian targets. I have personally witnessed tens of times when our military refused to hit very fat military targets when they were in immediate proximity to civilians. And it's painful. I was there showing them, hey, listen, the house is destroyed. Probably nobody living there. There's no roof, but the house is hidden behind the house, so you automatically get a refusal because regardless if it's populated or not. Still, if it's a house, we don't shoot. And I'm absolutely sure that the provocations, at 101%, that these provocations that pretend to be Ukrainian artillery are very popular on the Russian side. I remember in 4 or 5 years ago in Donetsk, there was a garbage truck that was driving around the city and shelling shelling Donetsk from the mortar. So another side of that is when Russian top command screwed up this war, they started also doing the same thing with information field. So they're also screaming that Ukraine violated all the international rules. In the meantime, they took Crimea, they took those gas platforms, they forced our people to move to Russia. And now, when these platforms self-ignited, self-combusted, now they're claiming that this is an international scandal. I think after the war we can publish a book of best statements by Russian Ministry of International Affairs. There are a lot of stories around these events. So once again, my warning to Kievans: be very careful today and tomorrow. Treat all the sirens very seriously. Okay, so today Zelensky talked with Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary. Very correct, very well-wishing tones. It was a very good press release, thanking them in their support for considering Ukraine candidacy for European Union. help with refugees, and even invited Orban to visit Kiev. Vladimir Zelensky, president of Ukraine, invited Orban to visit Kiev. Do you think this was somewhat coordinated, maybe with Brussels or other leaders of the European Union? Let's try maybe to work with that man on different levels, because now they're already starting the discussions of a seventh set of sanctions. And part of it are related to trade in gold, because Russia has gold in reserve, and that prohibition will prohibit it from being used and converted to currency. So, in light of that, that might be a good practice to bring Orban to Kiev and show him how things are. So, kind of like a preliminary preventative tactics. So he would not pose a blocking threat for the next set of sanctions. What do you think? I could say proper diplomatic words, or I could voice the personal opinion of Olexiy Arestovych. I'll try to stick to the middle, somewhere there. There is a collective decision made by European Union, and every juxtaposition of yourself to that decision is not a right approach. Position of Orban is not entirely popular in Europe. It is liked in Hungary, and it's liked by people outside of it, but with the overall consensus of Europe, his position is not popular. And there were parliamentaries who suggested, let's make it a simple majority, let's take away his right to vote against things. And these opinions do come up once in a while in Europe. And when it's pronounced from a pretty high pulpit, it is what it's called a political signal. So I think Hungarian leadership understood that to go against the decision to give Ukraine a status of candidate would mean to seriously quarrel with the groups of influence within the EU. And you think that one can suggest that Moscow was persuading Hungary to vote against? I think Moscow was trying to convince everybody whom they can get to. And when Putin said that he is not against Ukraine joining European Union because it is not a military structure, it was not just political avoidance, it was actually a straight outright lie. Because EU does have a military force, and they keep bringing this up. Some of it is on paper, but they do have some in real life. And also there was a very decisive statement made by bigger players of EU, France, Germany, Italy, who said that Ukraine must become a candidate in European Union. And there are two ways to either continue resisting to that and get certain reprimands, or relax and go with the flow, which they likely chose. And actually Hungary was not the main problem maker. Netherlands had some issues and they were discussing them, but Hungary went pretty peacefully. On one hand, it's understandable. Candidacy is not membership, although it's a big step. And there are certain things that need to be adhered to in order to successfully transition from candidate to member. That was a nod to Netherlands because they were insisting on certain conditions. But with Hungary, there was not much difficulty. There is actually a direct analogy with joining NATO by Sweden and Finland. Yesterday, a high NATO official said that they will accept these two countries despite the resistance from Turkey. You mean now or September or when? Very soon. So how do they think they'll do it technically? On the Madrid summit, and I don't know the technical details on that NATO decision. Do you think they can go and do a technical summit and just say we'll ignore Turkey position completely? I would need to check the language of original. I did not have time to verify that, but it shows that the principled position of one of the members, it can be rather unacceptable for the other members who would like to push that decision through. And then they start looking for other ways to exert pressure or avoid the opinion of that member. So basically to push through, yes, to push that through. That rhetoric is very similar. That's why I'm bringing this analogy with Hungary and its voting on the European Union's place. So you think that situation, because Finland and Sweden is a serious question. They are the countries, whatever we say about them, they're not in a position like Ukraine. They're already integrated into the European Union. They're full-fledged Europe. And it's a lot of strategic, tactical, and geopolitical stuff involved. Not accept them to NATO, it's not really pose a threat of immediate invasion to them, but it's to create a situation of a special points towards Moscow. It will allow them to jump like crazy and scream that they found ways to stop Finland and Sweden being accepted to NATO. They'll basically own that as a victory. And it's important. One needs to understand both the context and the consequences. So if Ukraine and Moldova would not be given that status, that would be a big official and moral victory of Moscow and a big loss of these two countries, us and Moldova, and a loss for a European Atlantic community. And regarding NATO, Putin started his war to prevent NATO from expansion. Here it is, not expanding, wink. Otherwise, it would mean that he had dictated his will, and then who would be listening to this NATO organ? Who would be providing security if people will not be considering it as a stronghold? So they're protecting their city on the hill and protecting their ability to issue harsh responses when necessary. And they're continuing in that direction because the story of not success for NATO is not needed by anybody at this point. Even Turkey is just trying to trade to get better concessions on the principal matters of interest for them. And I don't think they will go too far as a country against the main team, because there are limits, and they realize they are. Transition some things to September, that's rather acceptable, but giving a resolution that they'll join us or become a candidate in a year, that's not the right resolution they need. All right, so we're at 33 minutes live. There's another question we need to discuss. It's out there. It's the exchange of Yulia Paevskaya, Tyra, the paramedic from Azov Steel, who became prisoner of war after the soldiers got out of the factory. And now she was rescued from the Russian side, and people are bringing questions, whom did we change her for? I understand we're avoiding the subject of Azov Steel for a while to not cause any harm, but I think it's been enough time, and she's now home. And we understand it was rough at Russian prison, but she's at least home now, safe. So, as we talked before, the exchanges on the lower levels, they're possible, right? No, this specific decision was made on the highest level, both here and in Moscow. Yes, of course. And according to my feelings and also some data, it appears that Putin actually is concerned with the destiny of each prisoner of war. And Tyra is very known persona, Yulia, and she has direct relation to the Azov Mariupol defenders. So as we understand, she was exchanged for a son of that Chechen military leader close to Kadyrov. This is not Ukrainian side or Russian side making a statement. This is some Russian disgruntled people who have apparently some knowledge of these things. And Ukrainian side, we're not commenting on it. So you understand, she visited my training organization back in 14, and that's when she got her military medical knowledge. And she visited that area since 2014, and she really loved it, that place, that city. So she was working with it for about 8 years, and she was direct fighter for Mariupol. I would not counterimpose her presence there to Azovstal defenders, and nobody is counterimposing that. Are they? Well, yeah, there were some attempts in Russian discussion. That's why I am commenting on it. They also threw in a very good other thing to bark at for our activists, because she said it in Russian. She said thank you to the rescuers in Russian, and a bunch of cultural persona. There is that, but I understand that it probably was ignited by Russian side. They know our weak points, and it's probably not the last story appearing around her, but the main thing that she is at home. So you think, and I'll remind here that I did defend Ukrainian political and prisoners of war in Russia, and I generally know how FSB knows and works with these people. FSB didn't like me, but my defendants did tell me how they were treated. So they're being talked to, they're being placed into the cells, and very often they put other employees of that organization, the FSB, to collect data. But why was it important? For us, no, I understand. Ukraine would like to exchange everybody for everybody. But for Russia, I think because they had a important sort of a VIP in prison, and we do have some high-level resources we can exchange, and some of them actually produce very fruitful results. And we exchanged her because she's a defender, she's our girl. They tried to paint her as a murderer of children, even though she was a doctor. She was treating everybody, including Russian prisoners of war. I'm not entirely in the know about it, but I suspect if one Russian would have gotten to her hands, she would have treated him as well. And there is a symbolic and a content element. We just talked about content. As a symbolic, they wanted to create an example out of this case. And then interesting fights broke out on the Russian side when people started discussing how come she was exchanged for some high-rank relative. Yeah, there is a bunch of high-ish level personages that we have. So people are still discussing some of it on the forums. But it's an empty thing, right? Well, not really, because it's important for politics, because politics may want you to quarrel with your neighbors or with certain groups. Well, I understand that Pusenkova, Shmusenkova, whatever, who's the first channel in Russia. So she's from the first channel TV, and she was the first one to announce that exchange. So, Mark, one Kremlin tower is fighting another Kremlin tower. The relation between Kadyrov and his people and Russians is rather strained. And it's not even an actual war-fighting officer. He was more of a criminal element, the guy that got exchanged. And we're discussing what's happening there, not from the Ukraine side, but just in general to understand. Does Ukraine understand the general dynamics? Oh, yeah. We see that they're quarreling with each other, including the staff Kremlin TV. And we also got our girl out. So, an interesting matter. And I suspect you have more Kadyrov people? You do, right? Oh, yeah, we do. So, does it close that exchange question for them because of money and other exchange options? Because DNR might jump in and suggest that they have money to pay with for somebody. Yeah, let's just say, Mark, yes, we have resources. All right, we have 420,000 people watching us live. We almost 42 minutes live. I suggest we talk tomorrow, same time. Mark, Thursday we'll skip as usual. I'm busy Thursday evenings, but Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, we can do the usual stream. All right, let's tag then. Please subscribe to our channels and to the Privateer station if you're listening to that in English. Mark's goal is to reach 1.6 million. He's 70,000 shy of that. And come tomorrow by 10 p.m. we'll do another stream and discuss the matters that we could not address today. Thank you, everybody. See you.